Talking NFL draft today, Adam Thompson hops on with me at the ATM Bets from Bookies.com. How do you bet the draft? Should you even do it in the first place? We're going to answer all those questions and some nuggets throughout the first round. Adam, welcome to the show. You are, I imagine, pretty jacked up for Thursday night, as I have come to find out you will actually be in attendance for the draft. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I've never been to a draft. I will be boots on the ground representing Bookies.com and RotoWire.com. So I'm excited. I've seen the chaos. I've seen, I live in Green Bay, full disclosure, and I've seen, they've been working on this for about 10 years trying to get the NFL to come here for this. And now that they're here, everything Lambeau and Packers is gold around here. So I'm excited for everybody else to kind of see it that's never been here before, but I'm excited to experience myself too.
Do you have any sort of anticipation for specific moments, or is there something you're curious about, as far as, like, most of us have just watched this thing on TV over the years? You're like, I want to see what this looks like in person.
The crowds have been intimidating. When you look at, I remember in Nashville especially.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
Yeah, the crowds were just unbelievable, and they were awesome. And I've seen the setup that they have here, and it doesn't look that large. But we'll see. I think they're still expecting a couple 100,000 people for this. Green Bay is calling it the biggest event in the history of the city. Schools are off for the next few days for this. Everybody's going down there. A couple 100,000 people in town. It's going to be a glorious event, especially if you like football.
So school is out. I imagine that's just Thursday, Friday, or are we in preparation mode for today as well?
There's some schools that are close to Lambeau Field that are already closed, but all the schools in the area are closed Thursday, Friday for sure.
That's incredible. What would your advice be to somebody that's listening to this that has never placed a dollar on the NFL draft? What's the first thing that those people need to understand?
Well, for one thing, there's a lot of smoke. So, you look at mock drafts now, and a lot of that is not going to happen. If you look at mock drafts, I've been doing this for a while now, and the most accurate mock drafts you can find were back in mid-March. Post combine, free agency was still going, but kind of wrapping up. And you really find out what teams were looking for back then. Now it's everybody just trying to fool everybody else so they can hopefully get their player. But so don't go all in on anything. Betting on the NFL draft is not a way to make a lot of money typically, but have fun with it. Like I say, everything is more interesting when you have a couple dollars on it. $5, $10, $20 at the most on a lot of these things. It just makes it more interesting. So, if you're going to watch anyway, you might as well have plus 250 on the Saints to take Shedeur Sanders.
Well, you're preaching to the choir on that. This is an information game, and with that, the line swings that we see over the course of weeks and months are pretty drastic. What's the latest big shift that you can think of off the top of your head?
Well, Ashton Genty was going to go to the Raiders for a long time. That's not going to happen anymore. Hopefully it is, because that's actually one of my top plays, but it's not a slam dunk like it used to be. One of my favorite picks on Monday was actually under 2.5 quarterbacks taken in the first round. That was at plus 310. Minus 340 was the over. Now, just a couple of days later, it's even money on both sides. I think Shedeur, as I mentioned before, he's the huge X factor for the 2025 NFL draft, and you can't ask for a more exciting X factor. You have a quarterback, you have Colorado, you have Prime. You have all those things wrapped into one big question mark heading into the draft. So I think what happens to Shedeur is going to have a huge ripple effect on what happens everywhere else.
So I have placed 2 bets on the draft as of right now. I might expand that to one more. I'm kind of like you, at least in the advice that you gave. This is I bet sports every single day of my life. This is not an area where I'm expecting to get a big payout. But if I think I have an angle here or there, I'll sprinkle a little bit on it. Why not? I'm going to be locked into this thing anyway. I took a stab at the Bears to draft Ashton Genty at 10 at plus 325. Do you approve the move?
I do not think the Bears will get Genty at 10. However,
I think he'll be gone already at that point.
I do. I think if he goes past 6 and the Raiders bypass him, I think everybody needs to question everything the Raiders do from here on out. That front office, they are by far the team with the biggest need at running back. They finished dead last year in the NFL in rushing by a wide margin, last in yards per attempt. And you have a guy sitting here who had 3,000 total yards of offense last year, about 30 touchdowns. You have to go get this guy if you're the Raiders. However, I think the Chicago Bears could get him at number 5. They've talked about moving up. I think a lot of people are looking at that number 5 spot as a way to move up to either get Genty or Mason Graham, the top defensive tackle. Jacksonville's going to be fielding lots of phone calls, I think, at number 5. And, Chicago's GM came out and said, expect chaos at the draft. Everybody has their first round pick right now, which doesn't happen very often. The Bears are known to make moves. They could use a running back. And I wonder if he's almost foreshadowing. He knows something, or at least he knows that he's going to go hard for that number 5 spot to get Genty. And then plus 325, that will look like a heck of a pick.
Well, hopefully that's exactly what happens. If I see the Bears trading up, I think I'll probably get pretty excited about the idea of who they're about to run to the podium or what Roger Goodell pulls out with that little note card. It's amazing though, Adam, the way that we've seen this shift where now we're having these conversations like we're not crazy talking about a running back being somebody that's worth trading up into the top 5 to get. Is he that special? Or do you think our perception of the position is starting to shift back to where it was in the early 2000s?
I think both. I think, I was a little skeptical. He's at Boise State. He's running over, lesser competition, certainly that he's going to see in the NFL, lesser defenses. But then in that bowl game, even when he got kind of stuffed, you could see what he had, and you could see what he could do if you give him an NFL caliber offensive line in front of him. So I think he's the real deal. I think he's going to be great. And I think with Saquon Barkley, we saw what the Eagles did with him. We saw what he meant to the Giants after he left as well. Only, I think, 3 running backs or 4 running backs in the last 6 years have been taken in the top 25. So it doesn't happen very often. But if you look at the ones who were, all those teams are glad that they did. We're talking Saquon Barkley. We're talking Josh Jacobs, who led the NFL in rushing 2 years ago and was a key cog for the Packers this past year. Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, each had about 1,900 total yards of offense, 19 or 20 touchdowns last year in their second seasons. All of those teams are glad they pulled the trigger on taking a running back early. And I think the same thing will be said after whoever takes Ashton Genty.
A reminder, his name is Adam Thompson. You can follow all of his stuff at the ATM Bets on Twitter. We'll go back to Shedeur Sanders for a moment. What is his current line as far as his over-under, and what would you advise taking as far as those 2 positions?
It's wild. He could go anywhere from 9 to the Saints. He could go from 21 to the Steelers. He could go second round. And if you look at, I don't know what his over-under is right now, but I was just looking at his odds for each team on who could take him. And right now, the Steelers, the 21st pick, are at plus 180, and they lead the way. The interesting part is the Saints aren't really that high up. The second and third teams on that list are the Browns and the Giants. Well, I don't think the Browns and the Giants are taking them in the top 5 at this point. So now you're looking early second round is what odds makers are telling us they're expecting if Pittsburgh bypasses. Now, could Pittsburgh take them? Yeah, I could see that. I could see Mike Tomlin, trying to see if he can work the magic out with Sanders. But Pittsburgh's also a team. Not only they really need a quarterback. Let's be honest there. But they could probably use a veteran quarterback. This is a team that's ready to win right now. The window might be closing on some of these veteran guys that they have. So they need to go out and maybe an Aaron Rodgers or something like that. But after that, I don't know. The Rams at 26, and then you're looking second round probably. You could look back into the first round if some teams want to pick up that 5th option on a first round pick with a quarterback. Giants, Browns, maybe even the Saints move into that 30 to 32, and that's when Shedeur gets taken. But yeah, I think it's going to be late. His stock has slipped for various reasons, I guess you could say. But he's when he gets picked, if he gets picked 9 by the Saints, that's going to change a lot of things going forward.
I saw a tweet, I think it was from BetMGM, that said that he's slipping in the draft because the teams found out that nobody went to his birthday party, which is a joke from the movie Draft Day. If you've ever seen that, that's hilarious. Where do you stand on Draft Day, by the way? That's been a big conversation piece on social the last couple of days. Is it a good movie or not? Are you a fan of the Kevin Costner classic?
I would say I was expecting more. I guess when I first saw it, if you ask me my favorite football movies, it's not one that comes to mind necessarily. I think we need Draft Day 2. I think you can do it better. It's kind of like NFL Head Coach, the old Electronic Arts. I'm dating myself. The old EA video game back in the day. There was a game called Head Coach, and it could have been the greatest game of all time, and it just wasn't. Somebody needs to remake that, and somebody needs to remake Draft Day.
Yeah, I would love to see a Draft Day too. I think I like the movie, but you mentioned the most important word, expectations. It depends on what you thought you were going to see going in. First wide receiver taken, excluding Travis Hunter. Ted McMillan right now is at minus 300. Matthew Golden at plus 200. Is this as much of a sure thing as the odds would suggest? It's not as, when you look at minus 300, that's still bettable. It's not like Cam Ward going one to the Tennessee Titans, so you have to lay $1,000 to win a penny. But Ted McMillan minus 300, Matthew Golden at plus 200. Is there a bettable angle with the first wide receiver off the board?
It's interesting because just a couple of days ago, McMillan was minus 200. So this tells me that he is trending in that direction to be the number one guy. But when you look at these two wide receivers, they are clearly the top two receivers in this thing. They could both go top 12, top 15. But they're completely different types of players. McMillan is a 6'4" guy who can, make any one-on-one catch. These catches he's making in his pregame workouts are going viral. And Golden, he's 5'11". He's a little smaller, but he's got a sub 4.3 40. So what do you need as a team? Do you need that speedster like the Dallas Cowboys might? Do you need a more physical guy like the Saints might need at number 9? It feels like it's more of a toss-up than these minus 300 odds would give for Tet right now. So I think there's value in Golden at those odds. I'd probably still lean Tet to be that guy. So I kind of stay off this one myself personally, but I think it's way closer than the odds would suggest.
All right, let's go team by team here inside of the state. How do you see the Jags drafting at 5? You have to lay your prediction out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, the top 4 all seem pretty solidified. I'm not expecting anything weird to happen. So really the draft starts at 5 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they're going to be getting a lot of calls for people who want to move up and take Mason Graham or Ashton Genty. But when you look at what the Jaguars need, first off, it's all on defense. Their defensive line was terrible. Their pass defense was as atrocious. Was on pace for a while to be among the worst in the history of the league. But I think Mason Graham, checks all the boxes for them. If you look at the Pro Football Focus, analytics on how they ranked how 2024 went for all these players, Jacksonville didn't have a defensive tackle inside the top 75 ranked. That's not good. There aren't that many starting defensive tackles in the league, and that means you need extreme help. Mason Graham will be sitting there when they pick. He is the top defensive tackle. He's been compared to Christian Wilkins. He immediately fixes the biggest need on a team that really needs a lot of improvement, but especially the defensive tackle spot. So this is going to fly in the face of a lot of predictions, but I think they stay pat. I think they take Mason Graham. The odds are actually plus for him. I think it's plus 140. So you are getting value with them staying conservative and just taking the guy that everybody thinks they should take.
That was the guy going to the Jags in every single mock draft prior to the last month. And then I think we all got bored and decided, let's tinker with this. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying at the beginning of our chat. The most accurate mock drafts are going to be the ones from 2 months ago. The Miami Dolphins can pretty much go in any direction at 13. They have a lot of needs and a lot of uncertainty. Jalen Ramsey looks to be on the move. Who knows what's going to happen with Tyreek Hill? What's the market telling us, and what do you think the Dolphins should do, can do, will do at 13?
Yeah, you said it. I mean, you could look at almost everywhere on the field and say the Dolphins could improve at this position. Like, they're not terrible anywhere, but they're not great anywhere, at least in the point where you could use some help just about anywhere. But I think Jalen Ramsey, like you mentioned, I think that forces their hand a little bit. Ramsey, if you look at the Pro Football Focus, I just mentioned them with the Jaguars. If you look at their cornerback rankings from last year, Jalen Ramsey ranked 10th among all corners in the NFL. After that, you're looking at 95th for, it was the next best, Storm Duck. Actually, 96 was Storm Duck. He was the next best. Other than Cater, who was the nickelback, who's 58th. But on the outside guy, you need an outside guy. Cornerback is going to be a position that's going to be there. The top two cornerbacks may or may not be there. But I think if Barron is there from Texas, I think if Johnson is there from Michigan, both those guys are day one starters. They are both immediate improvements if you have to move Ramsey, which it sounds like they do. Cornerback is plus 200 as the position that the Dolphins first select. O-line is plus 135, and there's going to be some options there. But with this Jalen Ramsey thing, I think that pushes corner to the top priority for Miami.
I love Will Johnson. I would love to see him in that Miami Dolphins jersey. Bucks at 17, still waiting to see a mock out there that doesn't have the Bucks taking Jihad Campbell. It's the only guy I have seen mock to the Bucks in the last month. Is there any way to profit off of this likelihood, or do you think that we should be looking in another direction?
I think there is a profit to be made here, and it's by fading Jihad Campbell. So let's see here. Yes, you are correct. Everybody thinks they're going to take the top linebacker in the draft. And back in the day, you couldn't get the top linebacker in the draft at 19. You can here. They made some improvements this offseason at linebacker, but they still need a lot of help. First off, you don't have to worry about the offense. They're bringing the band back together, which is a very impressive by the front office to keep that all together. Defensively, they didn't have a pass rush. Their safety situation was not good. They had nobody ranked inside the top 70 in production in 2024 at the safety position. Now, there are two safeties that are graded as first-round guys. Nick Emanwuri out of South Carolina is the top one. Malachi Starks of Georgia is the other. Both those guys could and should be available at 19. Safety for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus 1,200 for them to draft a safety in the first round. That is where my money is going. Let's go for the ultimate. Put $10 on that, win 120 when they take Emanwuri in the first round.
Why not? I think that brings us home on this idea that if you're going to bet the NFL draft, unless you have insider knowledge, have some fun with it. Adam Thompson from @the_ATM bets from Bookies.com. Go and check out all of their great stuff. Thanks so much, Adam. I really appreciate the insight.
Thank you. Happy draft day.